Production of Kansas City Week in Review is made possible through the generous support of Dave and Jamie Cummings, Smithfield Foods, Haas and Wilkerson Insurance, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
It's decision time. From pavements to puppies to pot. Everything you need to know about Tuesday's election in Kansas City. Welcome, everyone. I'm Nick Haynes. We invited Mayor Sly James to join us this week to debate the infrastructure election. He accepted our invitation, but only if he got to appear alone. He refused to debate the plan with anyone else. We felt that would be unfair to opponents of the tax, so we passed up his appearance. But with us are four reporters who have been lifting up the hood on what's at stake. Kansas City Star City Hall reporter Lynn Horsley, Star Business and Politics reporter Steve Vockrodt, the senior writer for the Call newspaper, Eric Wesson, and the Kansas City Star's Dave Helling. Now, if you live in Kansas City, Missouri, you'll be asked on Tuesday whether you're willing to increase your property tax to support $800 million in infrastructure improvements. Those improvements are contained in three separate questions. Question one, which would fund up to $600 million for streets, bridges, and sidewalks. Question number two, $150 million for flood control. And question number three, which allocates $50 million for a new city animal shelter and building upgrades to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. You get $800 million in improvements in all. But at what cost to you? Well, that's been a source of contention during this campaign. Color brochures mailed to voters say it'll result in a property tax increase of just $8 more a year for the average homeowner. That sounds reasonable, doesn't it? But now there are reports that say that's false. It'll cost the average Kansas City homeowner $100 a year. Which is it, Lynn?
Well, over the full 20 years of this program, it will average out to $100 a year. This ramps up, and I could take 30 minutes explaining municipal bond finance, which I'm not going to do. But the city will issue bonds cumulatively, and so the tax increase accumulates during that time. For the first year, for the average homeowner, it'll maybe be about $14. But then they're going to issue more bonds, and so it goes up another 13, and then another 13. And over time, over the 20 years, you will have paid about $2,000 more than you would without this bond authorization.
But you spent a lot of time in commercial television news, Dave, doing the truth check on these commercial that politicians run. So on that brochure where it says $8 a year is the cost, what rating would you be putting on that?
Well, you would call that misleading. It misleads the public to think that each year a homeowner, a typical homeowner, is only going to pay another additional $8 from the 2017 baseline. That's just not true. It's, as Lynn points out, a roughly average of $100 over the 20-year life. Remember, the bonds are actually paid off over a 40-year time frame. There are no additional increases after 20 years, but the tax does level out more or less based on retirement of other bonds. Lynn's right, you don't want to go through all of that, but people going to the polls should think in terms of about $100 a year average over the next 20 years.
People like to keep things simple too, Eric. So why is there three separate questions on this? Why couldn't there have just been one question that says, would you like to have infrastructure upgrades, $800 million, one question, yes or no?
Because I think they wanted to separate it so that the heavies could get what they want or get the most of what they wanted, and then the other groups could get what they wanted. I think one of the things was the animal shelter. There was an issue with that, and the ADA. Improvements were both on there, so they wanted to separate it because some people might vote for that and not vote for other aspects of it.
The city council's preference would have been for one question, yes or no, the whole deal. But the bond council said that the way the laws are crafted now, that taxpayers need more information. And so they divided it up into three categories of infrastructure. One is the streets and related projects, including sidewalks. One is buildings, including the animal shelter, and one is flood control. Those are kind of different kinds of infrastructure, so people should have the choice and the knowledge for each of those categories.
And to add to the complication on this, we are expecting normally on an election, a majority are going to support that. But on this, 50% is not enough to pass these questions, requires 57.1% approval. Why this arbitrary, what seems like an arbitrary figure, Steve Vockrodt?
Well, those are just the vagaries of Missouri law that have accumulated over time. And to add a little bit of weirdness to the situation, in an April ballot, it would be 57.1 for a bond issuance of this type. But if they did it, say, in August or November, that rate goes up to 67%, or even a more supermajority than what we're dealing with in April. So it's all kind of strange, but that's the.
You know, the discussion we have on this all the time. I don't think anyone has ever really explained why the need for a supermajority, and it's because legislators have come to believe that when you borrow money, you need more support for that than just 50% plus one. That a borrowing by a municipality or any public body needs a supermajority. That's why that's embedded in the law.
Well, question number one says up to $600 million will be spent on streets, bridges, and sidewalks. That's pretty broad. So is there a specific schedule of projects, Lynn, you will know will be accomplished if voters say yes on Tuesday?
No, there is a plan. There is a resolution that outlines a series of streets that the city knows need to be addressed, and you can go on the city's website and find that list, and many of those projects probably will be accomplished. But this is a 20-year plan, and so the city council said we want to allow some flexibility for urgent needs that may arise that we don't even foresee at this point. So there isn't a guaranteed list of projects.
So how does the public know that the money will be spent in this way on these projects?
Well, I think it comes down to political will. I think they have to stay on top of their elected officials, city officials, to make sure that the projects that they want are priority, or at least put on the priority list. I think that's one of the ways that they can get it done. We took a phone survey over the past 6 months on what people in the urban core thought was important. The first thing, of course, was abandoned and dangerous buildings. The second thing was sidewalks, curbs, and bridges and roads. And surprisingly, water bills. So those are the things that people thought were important with the city survey. These were the things that they came up with the survey that said was important to taxpayers.
Well, sidewalks are part of this particular proposal. Currently in Kansas City, if you have a problem with your sidewalk, you have to pay for that yourself out of your own pocket. This would now pay for sidewalks to be repaired. Is that unfair to those Kansas City, Missouri taxpayers who have already paid for their sidewalks and are now seeing people getting them done for free?
Well, yeah, it's unfair, but you could argue it's unfair. But I mean, taxes, there's always a question of fairness with taxes. There's people who say, why do my taxes go to professional sports stadiums when I never use them? Or people who say, why do my taxes go to the library system when I don't use the library? So yeah, it's just the reality of taxation.
I think yes, there are people in more affluent neighborhoods who have tended to do their own sidewalks, and now they feel like, well, why should I have to pay for somebody else's? But there is such a wide swath of neighborhoods in this city that have lousy sidewalks, and the feeling is that this property tax increase will ultimately lift up those neighborhoods and thus lift up the whole city. I did want to also say the City Council has pledged to have an annual report of what was spent, which projects were accomplished, and what's slated to be done in the next year. So we're supposed to get yearly progress reports.
And there are some areas in the city that don't have any sidewalks and curbs at all. And you've got some areas where you've got a slab of sidewalks that are underneath a bridge, but on the beginning and the end of the bridge, there's no sidewalk. So there is a need for sidewalks. And one other thing with the assessments, if you already have it done and are getting an assessment, if the tax passes, your assessment is paid off.
Well, question number 2 asks, are you willing to support a property tax increase to fund $150 million in flood control projects? What does that actually mean, Dave?
There's, again, a sort of an amorphous list of where that may be spent, some in neighborhoods which have problems with old creek beds and flooding in basements. But we were told yesterday some of it may go for projects along the levee system, along the Missouri River as well. There is an enormous amount of federal money that has been pledged to flood control projects in Kansas City with, as long as the city comes up with a match. And that's what the argument has been for question 2, that we can leverage, in essence, this $150 million to another $500 million additional dollars for flood control projects, big and small.
Aren't people, though, paying for this already in increased water and sewer bills? If you haven't noticed, those bills are rising rapidly, a point made in a KCPT documentary that aired this week, part of our infrastructure project, Public Works.
For many people in Kansas City, the water bill has become unaffordable.
I go over here and pay my gasoline gas, but I don't have enough money for the water.
Prices have rocketed, and they're set to rise even more.
If the water rates increase this month, they don't have the money to pay for it.
Don't pay your bill, and they'll cut you off. the numbers are staggering.
I can't cook, I can't clean, I can't groom me or my kids.
We're paying to keep sewage out of our rivers, but are they getting any cleaner?
Blue River is brown, and you wouldn't let your dog drink from here.
We ask whether parts of our community are shouldering too much of the burden.
First of all, I don't think that the public can continue to support the full weight.
As far as the rates going up, we have to still be fair.
And we ask whether our local leaders can find the right answers.
And I think we have said this is going too high, too fast.
An excerpt from KCPT's new documentary examining escalating water bills by Michael Price. You can see it again Monday night at 10 on KCPT. But is flood control part of why people are paying more in their water and sewer bills now, though, Lynn, or is that a completely separate issue?
Well, generally not. There's a little tiny bit of the bill that's for storm drainage, and that assists with some flood control maintenance, but not these huge flood control projects. The bulk of the water and sewer bill increases are to replace water mains that are, in some cases, 130 years old. But the city is also under a federal mandate, an unfunded mandate, to clean up its sewer, combined sewer system. They were dumping raw sewage into streams and rivers. The EPA came down on them in 2010. They had a decree that said, you have to fix this. Over 25 years, it's a $4.5 billion problem. That's the sewer and water bill increase. So that's not really related to flood control.
So that has nothing to do with this infrastructure election then, Steve?
Yeah, it's mostly a separate issue, but it is still a major political and quality of life question for people in Kansas City. And other cities have tried, they've done similar improvements, high-priced improvements under the EPA's thumb to improve their water and sewer rates. And some of those cities have found after about 10 years of just trying to increase rates for users year over year that it was politically untenable, and I kind of wonder if that day's coming up.
The city council realizes these are burdensome bills. It is really a hardship. They're going to go back to the EPA and try to get more time, spread out the costs over an even longer period of time, and that should alleviate the annual increases that are occurring. It's not guaranteed, but they're hopeful that they can get the EPA to provide some relief.
I took a tour through Town Fork Creek neighborhood off of Bell Fountain where the flooding gets really bad, and people took me down and showed me their basements. They had watermarks on the walls from where the flooding from just flash flood rains have backed up and get into their basement, and they had mold in there that they had to have removed. So it's a need for it, but whether it's people that are living in neighborhoods where this doesn't happen are going to vote to help those people in neighborhoods that it does remains to be seen.
Well, question number 3 asks you to support up to $50 million for a new animal shelter and building upgrades to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Now, why does Kansas City even need a new animal shelter? We sent KCPT's Even E. Bing out this week to get a better sense of the condition of the current facility.
It's on the April 4th ballot, but how much do you know about Kansas City's animal shelter? We're here at the facility located in an industrial area just south of Arrowhead Stadium.
This building has been here since 1972. It was actually built as a warehouse to store construction equipment that was being used to build Arrowhead Stadium, so it was never meant to be a shelter. We took over running it in 2012, and before that the city operated the shelter since 1972. All of Kansas City's pets come here that are lost, picked up from animal control, picked up as residents as strays. We take in around 10,000 animals a year, and they all come through this building. We're actually the 3rd largest open admission no-kill shelter in the United States. What open admission means is that we can't turn away any animal in need in Kansas City, Missouri. We can never say we're too full. Our doors are always open for pets, even in times where we're getting on average 30 animals a day. Even if there are no open kennels, we have to make space for them.
It's an old metal building that wasn't meant to probably have a single animal in it, and it has 10,000 a year inside there. We don't have a single place to introduce dogs to people. The cats, the same situation. They are just in one room that's the size of probably somebody's bedroom, and so whatever space is in the middle is what they have to meet potential adopters.
A new facility for Kansas City, Missouri would be built in Swope Park. It would be at the corner of Gregory and Elmwood, right next to the zoo, right next to Starlight Theater and Lakeside Nature Center, as well as Swope Park Dog Park. So right there where a lot of animal organizations already are in Kansas City, we'd just be right there. We would have additional room to hold animals. Right now we really struggle with space because there frankly aren't enough kennels to take in the amount of pets that we get in every year. We have animals in former office spaces. We have people that work in the hallways. Our laundry is done in an open air garage. We have no real place to house other animals that come in like chickens and pigs and goats. We do get those animals here, but with a new shelter we would be able to house all of those animals in a more effective manner.
Can you do touch? Touch. There you go.
KCPT's Evany Bing with that story. We can, of course, be touched by cute puppies and cute kittens doing high fives, as we just saw in that story. But the question here is, could a new facility be built or the existing one upgraded without taxpayer money being spent on it at all? Dave?
That's an argument that you could make, although this has been a public shelter and a public issue, frankly, as long as I've been in Kansas City, which is most of 3 decades. So this is the latest attempt to try and modernize that facility, which has been, they've had problems out there with heat and keeping the animals warm in the winter. And the animal rights community, broadly speaking, is very supportive of this new endeavor. It is a political problem because some people wonder why tax money has to go to keep animals in good shape when you're taking money away, in essence, from people who need it for food and water bills and other things that we've talked about. And so I think that's one of the reasons they did split it into a third question, other than the bond council requirements that people who think that we should spend money on animals can sort of do that in question 3 and not have it affect the other.
Could the city afford this, though, without a property tax increase? Could it do it another way, Lynn?
Well, if they just do question 2, which is the $50 million, they might be able to find a different way to fund this. But this is part of this $800 million program. They also say that with the animal shelter, they've got pledges for $10 million in private donations. This would be a public-private partnership. It would have a maintenance endowment. You know, a lot of other communities have built more modern pet shelters, and the feeling is that Kansas City needs this. The other important thing is we have another unfunded federal mandate to upgrade city buildings to make them accessible to people with disabilities. That's a hugely expensive part, and that would also be paid for in part with this question 3.
Because this is really a $50 million question, $14 million of it going towards the animal shelter, which means $36 million goes to upgrading buildings for the Americans with Disabilities Act?
Well, most of that. I mean, there are other building issues, building upgrades that need to be done. But yes, it would help with the ADA improvements.
And sidewalk cuts, curbs cuts, so that wheelchairs can get accessible up on sidewalks. So
can I just say, briefly, Nick, you hit on the most important question on all of these 3 issues, which is, could this be done in ways other than raising taxes? Not just the animal shelter, but the whole $800 million. And I don't think anyone in this campaign has suggested there isn't a need for any of this. Flood control, streets, sidewalks, bridges, animal shelter. Even opponents don't really question the need. What they do question is how the money is going to be raised. And the central question taxpayers have to answer is, are there enough efficiencies at City Hall that you could issue this kind of debt and pay for it with existing taxes, or do we need to raise property taxes? And that's really the threshold question next Tuesday, it seems to me.
Another big question, though, we can go through the nitty-gritty details of all 3 of these questions, but what happens if these don't pass? What happens to all of these infrastructure problems then, Steve Okra?
Well, there's probably a good chance that a lot of them will continue to linger on for a while. I mean, they could come back to the voters in another year or 2 if they run a more protracted, maybe more organized campaign over a length of time. But my anticipation would be that the city would say, well, we presented you guys with, we presented the public with an opportunity to fix these things that they keep saying that the city needs to fix, and they said no.
So move to the airport or move to
They don't come back with an infrastructure plan B that comes to the voters later in the year or the beginning of next year, Lynn?
You know, right now they're concentrating on winning this election, and they don't have a backup plan. But my suspicion is they might try to come back with something more modest. Again, they'd have to wait till next year. As they say, the problems are not going to get better on their own. The streets will continue to deteriorate. They do still have these unfunded mandates that they have to do with the ADA. That money will have to come from somewhere. So I think the feeling is that if the voters say no, the infrastructure is going to continue to crumble.
But there's always a chance you could come back to voters and ask for a bond issue without a tax increase, which has been done before. Now, there will be arguments that you can't do it that way, that taxes have to be raised to pay off these bonds, but you could do it out of existing revenue or try a more modest package. That may be an option as well.
Well, also on the ballot Tuesday is a sales tax to boost development on Kansas City's east side. If approved by a majority vote, a 1/8% sales tax would be imposed citywide, with the proceeds devoted to economic development along the Prospect Corridor. That tax would be in effect for 10 years and would fund improvements along Prospect from 9th Street in the north to Gregory Boulevard in the south. It's estimated it would raise $8.5 million a year. What projects are going to be supported if you vote yes on this on Tuesday, Eric?
I met with the sponsors of the bill and the people that put it together, and they told me this. They said that it's an application process, and it will come for projects and programs, not just particularly projects that people think are shovel-ready to build along that corridor. So what they want to do is have people come in with applications, apply for the money. If their application is good, they go through a screening committee. If it's good, it's presented to the city council, and
Can
it
you
gets
name
funded.
like one project, the kind of project that would be funded?
One of the projects that they would add to would be the Prospect Max, because there's funding for it that's in the question 1 that they would help fund along Prospect. So that would be one of them that I'm sure would get a lot of attention, because that's something that the city really likes.
Lynn.
Well, but that's one of the contradictions. Some of the proponents of this tax have come out against the city's proposal, and the city's proposal is how they would build the Prospect Max. So if you want to align your economic development with the Prospect Max, you'd think they would be supporting the funding for the Prospect Max, which is part of question 1. And there's been some friction between this group and City Council, which has not been terribly productive. Critics would say there is not enough specifics in this proposal, that we don't know what it would fund, and we don't know that the money would be well spent.
And the interesting thing about it, and to kind of piggyback what Lynn said, is that the proponents of the 1/8 of a cent say that they don't trust the city to do what they're supposed to do with the GO bonds. So how do you not trust them with that, but you trust them with your 1/8 of a cent?
Yes.
That is the confusing part about it all.
But the proponents of this also, though, feel that they've been completely left out of funding on the east side of Kansas City. And without this designated tax, they will always not get their fair shake from City Hall, Steve.
Yeah, and that's not an unfair thing for the proponents to say. I mean, East Side has a long history of disinvestment, as we know, and there's not one single cause for that. There are several. This tax is a little bit unusual in one way, in that it's a citywide tax that would be dedicated to a specific area. And there's some examples of that historically. I mean, for example, Jackson County, the entire county, is paying for Truman Sports Complex through a sales tax, and Clay County and Jackson County are paying for the zoo, for instance. But for sort of a broader neighborhoods, that's a little less common for a tax of this type.
But we also supported Sprint Center with a hotel tax or a rental car tax that other people pay to benefit one very specific area of the city.
Right. There are several questions voters will want to ask themselves as they consider this thing. First of all, $8 million a year, 10 years, $100 million all in with inflation. That will not solve the problems along the Prospect Corridor. You could spend 10 times that and you would still struggle. But it would be a start, proponents say, and that's why you should be for it. The other thing is it's a sales tax, which is regressive, which hurts the poor. And again, one asks if there is a way to fund this out of existing revenues rather than raise taxes on it.
But $800 million doesn't solve the infrastructure problem either.
Right.
That is billions of dollars, so that's only a portion of what it would cost. Along with pavement and puppies, by the way, pot is on the ballot Tuesday. It's question 5, which would reduce the penalties for marijuana possession. Currently, if you're caught with up to 35 grams of marijuana, you could get up to 180 days of jail time and be slapped with a $500 fine. If this passes, no more jail time. And what about a $25 fine? What do we need to know about this ballot question?
Oh, there's all kinds of things we need to know about this one. I mean, this is one of the more frustratingly nuanced questions for a lot of reasons, and we could probably do a whole other episode about it. But the proponents of this just very generally say that the public's attitude nationally is turning around on use of marijuana, and we've seen some states that have legalized it, and they call this decriminalization, which you could argue whether that's really true decriminalization, but yes, it does lessen the penalties financial penalties considerably, and it takes jail time off the table, although most authorities would point out that, for simple possession, first-time offenders for an amount under 35 grams, they're not really doing a lot of, they're not really.
But you would still have a criminal record, and that's one of the concerns of some folks, that you would still have that on your record, and that could affect you for employment, it could affect you for housing and scholarship applications, and you need to be aware of that. This is not a get-out-of-jail-free card completely. There are still some punishments that may follow you.
That's precisely what City Councilwoman Alicia Kennedy has said. She's a former prosecutor. And she's worried that people will think, hey, I just have to pay $25, I get a ticket, I'm home free. And, with the possibility of jail time, you can get legal aid representation and they might be able to cut a deal. Whereas this way, you're not necessarily eligible for an attorney, and people might just not realize the consequences of having this on their record.
Very quickly, people should also know it's just a change in the city ordinance. It doesn't change state law. Right. And prison time and fines remain possible under state law, and it doesn't change federal law either. Now, federal prosecutors aren't out there chasing first-time users, but you'd hate anyone, Nick, to say, hey, I saw a Nick Haynes show, it's only $23, and get arrested and find out that it was something different. Voters would want to keep that in mind.
And that, I hope, keeps you informed about your decisions on Election Day. That is our Week in Review. Our thanks to our news reviewers, Lynn Horsley and Eric Wesson. And from the pages of your Kansas City Star, Steve Bockrot and Dave Helling, I'm Nick Haynes. From all of us at KCPT, thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.